Welcome back. I've got a Blu Ray update, and I'll probably have a couple more in the next 2 weeks because I've got a bunch of stuff from the Halfway to Black Friday sale, Vinegar Syndrome, and then I've got the Severin Nuclear Meltdown bundle. But I like to watch them before I talk about them, so it might be a week or two. But I do have a nice stack here to go through. First up is The Hand That Feeds the Dead. Sergio Garoni, who usually does Nazi exploitation films and westerns, but he did dabble in some horror. And this is one of two films. It's a full moon release. Klaus Kinski stars as a mad scientist with a failing marriage, and he returns to the family house. It's a very gothic looking film, very much along the lines of Mario Bava, without the really great camera work and great sets of a Mario Bava film. And again, it's a film that Klaus Kinski's a natural to be a mad scientist or a crazy person. I mean, he probably was crazy in real life, but it's not enough to carry the film, unfortunately. It's a dull watch. And the middle half of it is just really, really dull, a lot of subplots, and there's not much of a payoff at the end. So, unfortunately, it wasn't that good. I give it a 6 out of 10. This is a full moon release with no special features, so just be aware of that if you pick it up. Next up is 2001's Sleepless. Dario Argento comes back to the giallo genre with a bang. I mean, the first 45 minutes of this is great stuff, as good as any of his films. But, and there's a big but, the second half of the film and the ending is a real letdown. And I think the killer is basically a letdown to me. You just have to watch it to see what you think for yourself. Max von Sydow plays a cop that was involved in some killings in Turin, Italy, and then 17 years later the killings resume, and they're trying to figure out who's doing the killings. Unfortunately, it just fails to deliver at the end. But I do think for Dario Argento completists, you got to have this film. It's a Scorpion release, and it's got Nathaniel Thompson and Troy Howarth doing a commentary, which was excellent, and a number of interviews. So I definitely recommend picking it up. Next up is a spaghetti western I picked up. This is an Umbrella release, Studio Canal. Django Shoots First, 1966. Now this is I believe this is the first Django offshoot. With the success of the Django films, this is the first one of many Django related offshoots you get. This one stars Glenn Saxon, who was a Netherlands blonde-haired Netherlands actor. I guess they were trying to parlay or the Clint Eastwood look without paying the dollars for it. And I think Glenn Saxon did a great job. He plays Django, and Django's trying to tangle with a corrupt banker for his inheritance. Basically, that's the storyline. I give it a 6.5 out of 10. The problem with this release is it is bare bones. I mean, there's not even a menu on this thing. As soon as you pop it into the Blu-ray, it goes right to the movie. There's no menu. There's nothing. It is a great transfer. It looks pristine. But if you want special features or interviews or even a freaking menu, you may as well forget it. Yeah, that's Django Shoots First. Next up, this is an imprint release of a sci-fi classic film, 1951's When Worlds Collide, George Pal. This is just a classic, great film. I give it an 8 out of 10. And it really looks like a nice release. This is the storyline is you've got a planet getting ready to collide with Earth, and some scientists and key people get together to build a rocket ship that'll take them to an inhabitable planet. This has some commentary tracks with Kim Newsom, one commentary track, and then a 90-minute documentary that I haven't checked out yet, but that should be great. Nice release. Definitely recommend When Worlds Collide. And for 1951, the special effects are fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Next up is a Vestron release from 1986, and that is The Wraith, which I believe stands for a ghost. This is a great film. Loved this film. And I grew up in the 80s. I never saw it when it originally came out. This was a first time viewing, and I loved it. I know Heroic Waffles talked about it as a separate video, and it deserves that kind of treatment. Charlie Sheen plays a young teen 20-something, and he gets sideways with some basically a gang of young teens that kind of bully people around, and they do it through auto racing. They race around the hills of Arizona, and they steal people's cars when they win, things like that. But they run afoul of a Dodge Interceptor that's turbocharged, and this Dodge Interceptor starts killing off all the kids in the gang. Clint Howard's in this, and Randy Quaid, who's fantastic. He plays the sheriff. Fantastic stuff. 8 out of 10. This has 2 commentary tracks, which I haven't listened to, but I will, and then a number of interviews and special features. Great. This is a great purchase. This is number 20 from the Vestron series. I mean, the pricing on these Vestrons has gone down to really a super reasonable, like $13-15. Awesome stuff. Next up is another Sergio Garoni, and this was made back to back with the other film I talked about, and that's Lover of the Monster. And it's really almost the same cast and crew and locations as the first film. And in fact, it's even got kind of the same storyline. This is a kind of a play on Jekyll and Hyde. Klaus plays yet another mad scientist with a failing marriage, and through experiments he goes nuts and starts killing people. This one's got a lot more meat on the bones than Hand That Feeds the Dead, but it's still pretty dull. And the ending was predictable. But I think it's a little bit better than... This is another full moon release, and it's another 6.5 out of 10. Klaus was much better, much more animated in this. Alright, next up, Andrei Jodorowsky, Santa Sangre. I haven't seen this before. This was the first time I watched it. And it's interesting. It's all his films are kind of an acquired taste, in my opinion. They're all very artsy and surreal. But this one, I think, is pretty accessible to many people. It's a serial killer film. A guy gets out of a mental institution after witnessing his mother get her arms cut off, and he's just crazy, batshit crazy. There's a lot of surrealism in this, so be prepared for that. I still give it an 8 out of 10. I think the surrealism is a bit overdone in some of his films. I just don't. The symbolism and things. I mean, I think it detracts from the overall story for me anyway. But this one is the most accessible watch I've seen of his films, and I've seen El Topo and The Holy Mountain as well. But I like this one the best. I give it an 8 out of 10. This thing is loaded with special features. This is a Severin release, by the way. All right. Next up is a 1982 Indonesian cheese fest. It's a masterpiece of cheese, and that's Satan's Slave. Godly. Wow. It just, you gotta, I tell you, the Indonesian films and films from India that kind of took advantage or tried to take advantage of popular horror films from the 80s. They made a bunch of these films. That they even made like one for Nightmare on Elm Street, that ripped off Nightmare on Elm Street. These are batshit crazy films, and there's some genuinely creepy moments in this. A lot of ghostly type stuff. The emphasis is on ghosts and apparitions, and in this film you've got evil that inhabits the dead, and then the dead come back to life. They are kind of like zombies, but creepier, more like evil apparitions, I think. Fun stuff, really fun stuff. I give it a 7 out of 10. I have not checked out the special features on this release, but I highly recommend this purchase. Satan's Slave, good stuff. Next up is a German film from the 60s that's surprisingly, shockingly graphic, and that's Horrors of Spider Island. This is one that's been out from Severn for a while, and I just, for whatever reason, didn't pick it up when it first came out. I know they had it in a spider bundle or something. That's the slipcover there, and then you've got number of special features. You've got, this is a film where you've got a lot of cheesecake. You've got a guy that's heading up a group of girls that he's taking abroad to do some kind of a burlesque show, or I forget exactly what his intent was, but basically the plane has to crash land on this island, and which is inhabited by these batshit crazy large spiders, and when they bite you, they turn you into a spider. It's good stuff. In fact, one of the girls in this, Barbara Valentine, I think, is one of Rainer Fassbinder. She's in a bunch of Rainer Fassbinder films. She's like the German Marilyn Monroe. Number of interviews on this. I thought it was great. I loved it. It's not good, and it's entertaining as hell. So I give it a 7 out of 10 for the entertainment factor. All right, next up is a French film from the 70s, early 70s, I'd never seen, and that's Shock Treatment. Shock Treatment is a Severin release, and it's about a clinic, a health clinic, where people that are trying to defy the aging process can go, and somehow whatever they're doing there, which has an insidious nature to it, helps these people reclaim their youth. And of course, there's always an insidious side to those type of things. I thought this was an interesting concept, interesting story that kind of fell flat for me. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I know there's some people that really like it a lot more than that, but I thought I thought the payoff was predictable. I didn't think that the build-up was better than the payoff. Let me just leave it at that. This has a number of special features, interviews, and audio commentary. So yeah, I would still recommend picking it up. It's an interesting slice of Euro horror that I don't think many people have seen. Shock Treatment. All right, next up, another Severin title, and that is Nosferatu in Venice. Klaus Kinski is back, and this time he plays a much more humane-looking vampire, shot in Venice and directed in partnership with Klaus Kinski because it was such a troubled production. This film, I think this is a paycheck film for Kinski. He obviously didn't want to put on the Nosferatu makeup from the Werner Herzog film, and I think in a lot of sense it was just such a he was so difficult in this film. If you listen to some of the commentary and the interviews and things, the film was just never going to be what it should have been. It's a lot of walking around Venice, which frankly, I mean, the shots and scenery of Venice is fantastic, but it's not enough to carry a movie. And I think Klaus just kind of sleepwalks through this one. He really does. It's significantly underplayed. There's some really, really kind of shaky special effects as well. It's a disappointment. I've seen it a number of times. I was looking forward to revisiting this with this Blu Ray release, and the transfer looks great. Got no complaints about that. It's just the film doesn't hold up, and the more you watch it, the more you realize how bad it is, and that's unfortunate because Herzog's Nosferatu is a masterpiece. So But apparently they shot like 20 hours. Venice was such a beautiful place to shoot a horror film, and almost the perfect location for a gothic horror film. They shot so much footage of walking around Venice and Klaus standing in a boat in Venice, riding around in Venice in the waterways in Venice, that they had so much footage they couldn't use, apparently. The other thing is with this, which was interesting, is that initially it was really good. It is intended to be a sequel to the Herzog film, and while they were waiting for Klaus to wrap up wherever he was working and get on, they shot some scenes with a Kinski double, in the Nosferatu makeup, and they had to throw away all that footage because when Klaus shows up, he says, I'm not going through the torture of Nosferatu again. I'm not wearing the makeup. Just forget it." So they had to toss all that footage. So just a very tough, troubled production, and it shows in the film, unfortunately. Still recommend picking it up. It's an interesting. The best thing about this is there's a feature-length film about Kinski's last years, which is cinema gold. I mean, so this is a must-own, even though the film's not very good. Last but not least, one of my favorite Don Coscarelli films, and that is, and definitely one of my favorite Bruce Campbell films, Bubba Hotep. I love Bubba Hotep. I think Bruce Campbell's portrayal of Elvis is fantastic, and I think the whole build up and battle with the mummy that's terrorizing this nursing home is fantastic. I just love it. It's a comedy. Obviously, it's a comedy. It's played for laughs, and it gets those laughs, but it does it in a way that's it's not a bunch of one-liners. Although there are some good one-liners in this, like when Elvis finds his room being terrorized by these huge rodents, or not rodents, but like moths or things like that, and mosquitoes. He says he's trying to explain these huge mosquitoes to the guy that's running the nursing home, and he says it's like it's I'm not an epidemiologist, man. This is like some kind of, this thing is as big as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Of course, Elvis loved peanut butter jelly sandwiches. It's good stuff. Love it. Highly recommend it. This is a Scream Factory release. Didn't come with the slipcover, but what can you do, right? 8 out of 10. This has loaded special features, commentaries and things. I haven't checked it out yet. All right, so that's going to do it for my update for this month, and probably we'll have another one before the month is out, although we're shortly getting there. It's the 23rd. Appreciate you watching. If you've seen any of those films or have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.